Hello listeners, we are your co-hosts Janine Bailey and Marie Quigley for the Empower World Coaching and Leadership Podcast.
Empower World brings guests who are making a difference to the world to inspire coaches and leaders who lead with mind, heart and soul.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Empower World Coaching and Leadership Podcast. And you're here with Janine Bailey right now, as Marie is not here, as she is committed to other things today. And what I have instead is the amazing Nadim Bitar. So Nadim, you are I'm so grateful that you are my very special guest today, supporting us with this podcast, which is all around love, the conversations, coaching conversations around love. We haven't decided on a particular topic. We just thought we would show up and talk about love in coaching. And this was really based on a magnificent webinar that you joined us for last week in terms of the Empower World Alumni webinar series. So both Marie and I are very grateful for you joining us and sharing your learning, your awareness about love in coaching. So it was such a beautiful and powerful session, Nadim. I've been wanting you to come onto this podcast for a long time to share your insights, your wisdom with our listeners. So welcome, Nadim. I'm going to hand the microphone over to you to share with our guests a little bit about you and your background.
Right. Thank you, Janine. Thank you for that introduction. And thank you for giving me that opportunity to another time to be with you. After doing the workshop and being again with you, it's really, I'm so happy to be here again and discussing and conversing about love, which is one of the greatest conversation of our time, I believe. Yeah. Janine, honestly, it's like before we started the podcast, and just the moment we turn on and we decided to be live, there's something said, now we have to be something else than we were just before. And what's funny is like, how can we be really authentic? The question that comes to my mind, how can we be really authentic? How can we be just before we were talking, before turning on the podcast and right now? How can this authenticity be reflected in our life all the time? How can we, and this is what comes to my mind now. I mean, honestly, when you were speaking, it's like we're switching from on to off, or from off to on. And there's something within us say, oh, I have to show up differently now. Is that true? I mean, yeah. And I love to bring this conversation because this is what's going on my mind right now. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know where to go from here, Janine. Shall I introduce myself a little bit, or what you?
If you could say a little bit more about yourself, and I really appreciate that you are being transparent and open and honest about what's coming up for you right now in terms of that question that has arisen, which is a really powerful question. And I'm sure that our listeners are also appreciating that is potentially a question they ask themselves, depending on the different situations and circumstances they go into. So maybe if you could give our listeners just a little bit of background about yourself. And I mean, one of the reasons you're here is because I've had the pleasure of supporting you to become a coach. You've done our training, the Empower World training, and so much more, the advanced coach training. And I also really appreciate your never-ending journey of continuous expansion and growth and inquiry, particularly into love. I really appreciate that about you. And the other piece that I really appreciate about you is, your background, where you came from before you became a credentialed coach. I love the meeting of those two things, those two parts of you. And of course, there are many more parts, but I recognize there are these two parts of you that are quite different. And it's kind of come together, or it has come together, to really explore love. And in this particular podcast, love in coaching. So I will hand it back to you. Thank you, Nadim.
But what's coming up now, Janine, is like, I'm an engineer by profession. I'm an engineer. I've been doing engineering for the last 25 years. So it's very important when you are working in engineering to be prepared. Otherwise, if you're not preparing, you're making calculation properly, doing not everything the right way, the proper way, then the building can fall or something can happen. It's very scary. You don't want that to happen. And the transition for me to move into coaching was a bit challenging because it's two different words, And recently, one of the reasons that I said yes to this kind of podcast, and one of the reasons that I have my own podcast, is really to start to be able to live spontaneously, and to let go the need to be prepared. Let go the need to be prepared, and the affirmations that I'm living with all the time in my mind. I create these affirmations that I'm not yet there because of my engineering and of years of the need to be prepared. But the affirmations that I'm embodying in my life and in my coaching and in my work, as a matter of fact, when I'm meeting and make conversation, it goes like that. It's like I am spontaneously living and enthusiastically expressing my loving with the world. So this is my affirmations that I repeat for myself because this is what I need the most to embody, not to be least prepared. And this is what I love this kind of podcast, is when we are coming and we have no agenda. We are here together, and wherever it comes, it's beautiful. And this one of the things that really make me enjoy the conversation. And this is what I believe is hard for conversation, as a matter of fact, because when we are prepared, we're not anymore speaking from our heart. We are more allowing the filter of our mind, the filter of our thought, our past to be expressed, and we are not allowing the spontaneously to come in. And that's why I feel spontaneously is one of the to be spontaneous is one of the biggest quality of love that really can, and that's why in the coaching, exactly, one of the main things that we learned, that when we're gonna show up for our client, is to not have any agenda, obviously, and not to be judgmental or prepare for anything. And actually, the more you prepare, the more you're preparing your failing session. Actually, that's what I learned. So, and this I had to learn it as I was going through coaching and through when I'm meeting people. When you want to really listen to people, also you have to not to be prepared. You have to be spontaneously ready for them. And this is, I believe, this is the biggest quality of the heart, spontaneity.
Mm. Yeah, I love how you shared that, Nadim, that spontaneity of the heart. And, one of the things that, and it resonates with what you were sharing as well in the podcast, you were sharing the principle, I think it was the principles of love-based coaching, or love itself, and how we can what's the word I'm looking for? Transform that into a way of coaching, how we can be and show up as coaches with this expression of love. And it really struck me how those principles were really reflected in the coaching principles that we also embody when we're really purely coaching, when we're really embodying the core competencies of coaching, when we're being really present, when we're really listening deeply, when we have no agenda, when we are listening so deeply to what is showing up in the conversation, and then getting curious and asking those questions to support whatever the inquiry is that's coming up from a place of love. There were so many similarities that I heard, which was incredible and reaffirming that I'm in the right place, doing the right thing. So, and I noticed that your swallowing right now, Nadim. So I'm guessing there's something emerging.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Not wait anymore. I have to because this exactly, while I was going into this love-centered coaching journey, I was just noticing like when what we learn in coaching is like first you have first principle of coaching, of course, is to know that our client are resourceful, whole, complete. So basically, what we're trying to say here, to see the loving essence of our client. And when we are trying to listen, being present, drop our judgment and really listen to them, we are trying to listen with our heart to our client, heart listening. And when we are seeing our client as being capable, or being capable to find their own solution, we are seeing with the heart-centered eyes. So it's all about that, but maybe we as a coach, we don't use that word, even though that word is already there. It's being aware about this loving presence that is with us, that can reinforce us and strengthen us and make us more feel that we are that presence of love. So we can elevate our level of coaching and elevate ourselves to know that we are here in a higher mission, elevated mission, not only serving from the low place. We are coming from a high place. And it gives us a sense of uplifting. And that's when we are in tune with love.
I actually feel myself lifting up as you share, Nadim.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, and your, I can sense your energy around this, again, this beautiful topic of that loving presence being a part of coaching. So say more about that loving presence, Nadim. I feel there's so much about that, those two beautiful words that will be supportive to our listeners as to what that means for you.
Yeah, I believe after having a lot of reflection and deepening on my purpose, Janine, I had one of the coaching sessions with you. Actually, I have to acknowledge that for you, maybe I never did. How do I know that if my coaching session is successful? And I was reflecting that with you. And I was looking too much at the outcome of what was going to happen with our client, and what was going to happen to the result that I'm going to get of my coaching session. And all of a sudden, while you were coaching, I just had a big realization that the moment when I'm truly present, I know that the coaching session is successful. It's the moment I know that I am the presence of love, that I know that everything will go just perfectly because you were truly present for your client. And it's like at that time, this was a long time ago, before, like 3-4 years ago when you were coaching me. And with that realization, I just became much more anchored into my coaching practice, because for me, the most important thing is to be this presence and not to look for an outcome from our client or from others, but as long as we are here. And the big affirmation that I always say to myself, that I shared also in the workshop, is to say, I'm not here to transform my client or to change them or to heal them, as a matter of fact. I'm here just to be the presence of love for them. And I trust that full presence, this presence of love will do the work, can support them and heal them and transform them. And that you know it when we know very well as a coach when we are really truly present or not. We know it, like you taught us. We know it if we are dancing with the client. We know it if we are mirroring the client. We know it very well. And that moment, if we know it and we sense it, then we know that our coaching session is successful. We don't need to look more than that, because we are being this loving presence. And when you bring this into a loving context, then you know you are already successful, because you are being loving. And then what's my purpose in coaching is to be that presence of love. Then what's going to be my purpose in life, as a matter of fact? It's going to be that presence of love as well. because I'm always successful. And I achieved all my success because that's all that matters after all for me. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Nadim, beautifully shared, and I'm trusting, inspiring our leaders to, or coaches and leaders, to recognize that it is within us to be able to step into that loving presence, and when we're there, we are also supporting our clients to connect to their loving presence as well, to really tap into that wisdom, as you shared, Nadim. And it again really reinforced something that I truly believe in, that when we do step into those principles of coaching, that we trust our client is naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. And that really is stepping into our loving presence and trusting our client. It is such a powerful gift that we can give our clients. We are sending, when we're in that presence, I truly believe that we're sending unconsciously, consciously to our clients that they have the answers inside. And I know when that presence and that space is created for our clients to find their answers, it is so powerful. So I really appreciate you reflecting that back, that reaffirmation of what is powerful when we're in coaching, to focus on the person that we're in front of in terms of their self-belief, their emotions, what's really truly important to them, versus, as you say, the outcomes. And the outcomes will come when we support someone at that level to create their success.
Yeah, that's what exactly. Yeah.
And again, you are a beautiful role model of that. You know, having your successful engineering business, your engineering and construction business, combining the two roles of managing, leading that, as well as your coaching practice. So, and doing, again, amazing things. So I'm just noticing the time, Nadim. So we're getting close to wrapping up. What would be your key pieces of wisdom that you would share with the listeners, the coaches, the leaders, potentially people considering coaching? What would you share with them to support them to embrace that loving presence?
You know, it's for me, as the way I see it, that we are always, love is always here. It's us that we are not here. It's not our lack of awareness about its presence that's not here. We go and come, but love is always centered here. So it just by bringing this more awareness about this loving essence that we are, it will help us really to start seeing the loving essence of our client, and bringing that awareness to ourselves first, then will help us and support us to really see it in everybody else, as a matter of fact, because it is always there. And there is no, the hard work is really not to reach it, but the hard work is to take out the cloud that doesn't allow us, what's blocking us from seeing it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that wisdom that you've provided, and it's a really great reminder that it is always here. That loving presence, it is always here, and it's ourselves that take us away from that loving presence. Yes. So it's potentially asking ourselves questions to bring us back to that loving presence. What am I making up about whatever's happened? What stories am I making up, or what judgments am I bringing in that takes me away from that loving presence?
Yeah, like each one of us will do it, will get away from love in a different way. You know, if one of us will disappear from or disappear or get away from love in a different way. Some of us want to try to impress, some of us want to doubt ourselves, some of us, we have to find it for ourselves, how we are getting away from that place. Am I trying, I want to make sure that people will see me successful. Then here comes the awareness of a coach to start realizing himself, what is really pulling me away from that center. And again, to center ourselves.
Yeah. And I guess it's also being aware that we will always drift away from that loving presence. And that is where the growth is. That is where the learning is. That's where the insights are to bring us back to our loving presence and also reaffirm what's truly important. That's what I'm potentially reading here.
Yes, we are always gonna drift, but the role of the coach is to see how fast it's gonna shift back.
The role of the coach is to support our clients to come back in their own time, but potentially speed up that time to be in that loving presence as much as possible.
Yes, it's as long as we are aware that we want to shift, as long as we are committed to that shift, it's already great. So we are aware that we are drifting and we want to shift back. So we are committed to go back to the center for us and for our client. So it's like, it is not believing that it's impossible or it's possible, but believing that it's here already. Just we are shifting and we have to shift back.
And I really like how you came in there. It is absolutely important that it's what the client wants to come back. Yeah, it's working with them if that's what they want and are ready to come into that presence.
Absolutely, it's always what the client wants, because we are if we have our own agenda, we are already not we have already come prepared. So we are preparing again, like we started this workshop. It's like the most important thing to be spontaneously available to what's going to arise from our clients. So we have no agenda of our own. It's like this is
yeah. Thank you, Nadim. Thank you so much for bringing your loving presence here today, and I really appreciate your presence, your acknowledgement as well. I absolutely appreciated working with you, and as I mentioned to you, I learned so much from working with you in all the different ways that we have done. And it's such a huge pleasure to have your loving presence here and sharing with our listeners your beautiful insights, your wise insights. And thank you for the impromptu conversation in terms of having no agenda, just seeing what shows up, seeing what comes up into the conversation. So thank you, Nadim.
Thank you so much, Janine. What I loved, what I call impromptu conversation, I call them when we let our heart play. Play of the heart. That's why I love this kind of conversation. So it goes, we follow.
Yes, I'm going to pinch that word too, or those words as well. Play of the heart. It's beautiful.
Actually, this is the name of my podcast. I call it Let the Heart Play. So,
oh, brilliant. Brilliant.
So it's like, let's play. It's okay.
It is okay, isn't it? Thank you, Nadim. And thank you, listeners. If you have feedback for us, Empower World or Nadim, please let us know either through our social media channels, or you can send an email to support@empower-world.com. And if you'd like to find out more about Nadim, where can people find you?
Oh, I have my nadimbitar.com my website, and my at nadimbitar.com my Facebook page and Instagram page. Yeah.
Fantastic. So Nadim is out there and available to connect with if you would like to do that. And if you do, I trust that you will gain so much information, wisdom, insights, and love from the amazing Nadim. So thank you again. And I hope you will join us again sometime soon, Nadim. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you for that occasion. Thank you for creating the space. Thank you.
My pleasure, my absolute pleasure.
Thanks for listening. You can find out more about us on our website, www.empower-world.com, and on our social media networks, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Be empowered.